Imagine being kicked out of first class just because of the color of your skin. But what if the man you insulted holds the ultimate power? What happens next will leave you speechless. The flight is about to board, and the first-class cabin is filled with the quiet hum of wealthy passengers settling in. A black man, dressed in an elegant yet simple outfit, walks in confidently and takes his seat in first class. He places his bag in the overhead compartment, adjusts his wristwatch, and leans back, ready to enjoy the flight. But then, it happens. The moment the flight attendant spots him, her face hardens. At first, she doesn't say anything. She just watches, eyes narrowing as if trying to figure out why he's sitting there. Instead of greeting him politely like the other passengers, she walks straight to him, her high heels clicking against the floor. "Excuse me, sir," she says, her voice carrying an edge that wasn't there when she welcomed the others. "I think you might be in the wrong section." The man glances up at her, calm but slightly puzzled. "No, this is my seat," he replies, tapping his boarding pass resting on the tray table. The flight attendant doesn't even look at the pass. Instead, she crosses her arms, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Sir, this section is for first-class passengers only," she says, emphasizing the words as if he doesn't understand. Passengers nearby shift in their seats, some pretending not to notice, while others watch with quiet curiosity. The atmosphere tightens. "I know," he replies evenly. "That's why I'm sitting here." Still, she doesn't back down. Instead, she leans in slightly, lowering her voice but not her hostility. "Sir, I need you to move to economy. Now." For a brief moment, there is silence. The man holds her gaze, studying her, measuring her. Then, he calmly reaches for his boarding pass and hands it to her. She snatches it from his fingers, glancing at it with an exaggerated sigh. But the second she reads the details, something shifts in her face. Confusion, then disbelief, then frustration. "This can't be right," she mutters under her breath, shaking her head as if refusing to believe what's in front of her. She flips the pass over, looks at it again, then at him. Her mouth presses into a thin line. Instead of apologizing, she doubles down. "Sir, where did you get this ticket?" The accusation lingers in the air, thick with implication. A few passengers exchange glances. Some look uncomfortable, others intrigued. The man tilts his head, his expression still calm, but now edged with something colder. "The same way everyone else here did," he replies. "I paid for it." The flight attendant stiffens. "I'll have to verify this with security," she snaps and turns on her heel, storming toward the front of the plane. A hush falls over the first-class cabin. The man doesn't move. He simply exhales, his fingers tapping lightly against the armrest. The tension in the air is almost suffocating. Moments later, two security officers step onto the plane, their eyes scanning the cabin before landing on him. The flight attendant is right behind them, arms crossed, looking satisfied. "Sir, we need you to come with us," one of the officers says, his tone firm. The man exhales slowly, glancing around at the watching passengers. Some are still pretending not to notice, but their curiosity is impossible to hide. "I'm not going anywhere," he says, his voice steady. The flight attendant smirks. "Well, see about that." And just like that, everything is about to change. The air in the first-class cabin is thick with tension. The two security officers stand firmly in front of the black man, their expressions unreadable, but their presence unmistakably intimidating. The flight attendant lingers behind them, arms crossed, waiting for him to be removed like an unwanted inconvenience. Passengers are watching now. Some discreetly glance from behind their phones, while others openly stare, curious to see how this will play out. But no one speaks up. The man remains seated, his posture composed. He doesn't raise his voice, doesn't argue. Instead, he calmly looks at the officers and asks, "On what grounds are you asking me to leave?" One of the officers exhales, already tired of the situation. Sir, we've received a report that you are in the wrong seat. The man leans back slightly, folding his hands in his lap. Who reported it? The flight attendant steps forward, her voice sharp. I did. His boarding pass doesn't seem legitimate. The officer glances at the pass still in her grip. Let me see that. She hands it over, shifting nervously as he inspects it. His eyes move back and forth between the ticket and the passenger list on his tablet. His expression subtly changes. He reads the name again, then looks at the man. Something doesn't add up. This ticket is valid, he says finally. The flight attendant blinks. What? The officer nods, showing her the tablet screen. C2A. First class. The ticket is real. A murmur ripples through the cabin. The tension that had been building now twists into something else. Disbelief, embarrassment. The flight attendant's face flushes. She recovers quickly, shaking her head. Then it must be a mistake. Maybe it was purchased with someone else's account. The second officer steps forward. Mom, are you suggesting that a paying first-class passenger should still be removed from his seat? She hesitates. The weight of the moment presses down on her, but she refuses to back down. I'm saying it doesn't make sense. First class isn't for. She stops herself too late. The man tilts his head slightly, waiting for her to finish, but she swallows the rest of the sentence. The officer's gaze sharpens. Mom, do you understand the consequences of falsely reporting a passenger? Her breath catches. I was just following protocol. The man finally speaks again, his voice calm but edged with something unmistakable. What exactly is your protocol? She opens her mouth but closes it just as fast. Her confidence is cracking, and now people are really watching. Some passengers are shaking their heads. A few are even recording. The officer sighs, stepping back. Sir, we sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. He turns to the flight attendant, his tone firmer. You, on the other hand, need to step aside. For the first time, she looks genuinely afraid. I was just. No more excuses, the officer says. We'll be reporting this. She takes a small step back, her face pale. Meanwhile, the man remains seated, unshaken. He looks at the officer. Are we done here? The officer nods. Yes, sir. Enjoy your flight. But it's far from over. Because now, the real consequences are about to begin. The flight attendant stands frozen, her face drained of color. The murmurs in the first-class cabin are growing louder now. Some passengers are whispering to each other, their gazes flicking between her and the man she just tried to have thrown off the flight. Others hold up their phones, recording the moment, knowing something bigger is about to unfold. The black man, still seated, adjusts his watch, exuding an air of quiet power. He hasn't raised his voice once. He hasn't needed to. The tension in the air is no longer about whether he belongs in first class. It's about what happens next. The flight attendant swallows, realizing the situation is slipping beyond her control. Sir, she starts, trying to regain some ground. I was only doing my job. Hey! He finally looks up at her, his gaze sharp and unwavering. Your job? He repeats, his voice calm but cutting. Was your job to assume I didn't belong here? To humiliate me in front of everyone? Or was it to ensure all first-class passengers are treated with the same level of respect? The question hangs in the air. She opens her mouth to respond, but stops herself. There's no good answer. The first security officer, who had initially tried to remove him, steps forward. Sir, again, we sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding. Please understand. The man holds up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. Then, with deliberate ease, he reaches into his inner pocket, pulls out his phone, and dials a number. The passengers lean in slightly, sensing the shift in energy. The moment someone picks up, his entire tone changes. Get me the airline CEO on the line. Now. The flight attendant stiffens. The security officers exchange nervous glances. The murmuring passengers fall into a heavy silence. A few agonizing seconds pass. Then, the voice on the other end comes through, and the color drains completely from the flight attendant's face. "Sir, I wasn't aware you were on this flight." The voice is hurried, anxious. "Is there a problem?" The man's eyes never leave the flight attendant as he speaks. "Yes, there is a problem. One of your employees just attempted to have me forcibly removed from first class, despite my valid ticket. She didn't check properly. She didn't ask questions. She simply assumed I didn't belong. And when she realized she was wrong, she doubled down. What do you think I should do about that?" Silence. A deep, weighted silence that presses against the flight attendant like a boulder. She sways slightly, as if trying to keep herself upright. The CEO finally exhales. "Sir, I am deeply sorry. This is unacceptable. I will handle it immediately." The man nods slowly, absorbing the words. "Good." Then, after a beat, he adds, "I want a full review of your first-class policies and employee training. I don't care how long it takes." And as for her, his eyes flick toward the flight attendant. "You already know what needs to be done." The flight attendant gasps, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "Sir, please," she starts, but the man merely raises a hand, cutting her off without another word. The security officers shift awkwardly before stepping back. One of them speaks into his radio. Within moments, another flight attendant arrives, visibly uneasy as she exchanges hushed words with her colleague. And then, just like that, it happens. The flight attendant who had started all of this, who had judged, accused, and humiliated an innocent man, is escorted off the plane. Passengers watch in stunned silence, some capturing the moment on their phones, others shaking their heads in quiet disbelief. No one speaks in her defense. No one argues. She walks past the man she had disrespected, her head hanging low, her breath uneven. He doesn't say another word to her. He doesn't need to. The lesson has already been delivered. She disappears down the aisle. The cabin door closes behind her. The plane, after an unnecessary delay, is finally ready for takeoff. As the engines roar to life, the black man exhales, his gaze steady as he glances out the window. The tension lingers in the air, but the lesson is clear. Assumptions have consequences. Passengers sit in stunned silence, processing what just happened. The airline will change, policies will be rewritten, and that flight attendant? She'll forever remember the day she tried to humiliate the wrong man. With a quiet smirk, he leans back in his seat. Justice had spoken without him ever raising his voice. Respect is free, but ignorance can cost you everything. Subscribe for more eye-opening stories. Please note this is not a real story. It's a work of fiction only for education and entertainment purposes.